welcome to the Gauntlet podcast. This is our end of the year, game of the year wrap-up episode for the Gauntlet podcast. We do this each year. Each of us hosts talks about what games we thought we loved the most. And because we can't choose just one, we'll have some other entries in there. And this doesn't have to be a game that came out this year, we bought this year. It just has to be something that we played this year or enjoyed this year in a particular way. So today I am joined by my co-host, Jammi.
Hello, hello.
And my co-host, Rich Rogers.
Hey, Lowell.
And, of course, my co-host, Sherri Stewart.
Hello.
So this has been a weird year, huh?
Ooh,
very strange.
That's a good way of putting it.
Yeah, a lot more people playing online games. A lot of different games came out this year, and I'd say even my mix of games that I played this year was different. Did you feel you kind of stuck to your same lines, or were that you were hitting different lines this year, Jammi?
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. So this year's really, what do we like to say, trying, as this year was.
Yes.
This is also my first full year on the Gauntlet. So it's also the year where I've got to play the most games in my life, which is really, really great. I'm super happy about that. And yeah, if I look at my list, if I think about the games, I really got to try a lot of different games that normally I'd have a hard time finding people to play with or finding the right group. And so, yeah, I got to really try out a lot of different games and really dive deep into new stuff, which is fun.
Now, Rich, on the other hand, usually each year you track X number of sessions of X different games, but you didn't do that this year. Would you say that affected your experience, or did you completely ignore that you weren't going to do that?
No. Here, the thing is, I said I was not participating in the ladder of insanity. I always track my plays, Lowell. Come on.
Would you say this year was the same, more different, more focused?
I would say that it was generally the same. I have a base of, 8 to 10 games that I like to get a lot of plays out of, mostly PBTA stuff, and then I try my best to dip into new games or games that have been sitting on my hard drive, collecting dust, as it were. So, yeah, kind of samey. I actually got more plays in this year than the last few years. Surprise, surprise.
Okay. And Sherri, how would you say for your experience this year?
It was many times more new games and actually deeper dives into new games than I've had before. And I play tested. I would say 80% of the games I played were play tests, which just means that they were in that starting phase. The designer wanted to try them out. We weren't doing any structured play test where we were trying only one mechanic. We were putting it out there and going, let's see what happens. And for the most part, it was always awesome. But we got to pretend we were important and give feedback. So that was awesome, too. But yeah, lots of... I played Belonging Outside Belonging games. I played deeper into different PBTA mechanics, so I started to understand them a little bit more. Tried firebrands. Just all over the place that I wouldn't have been otherwise. And it was super fun.
So, listeners, the way this is going to work is each of us is going to talk briefly about our picks, and then in between, we've gotten various community members to also record their choices, and Rich will be providing a beautiful edit to bring this all together into a lovely long episode. So, without further ado, we're going to start with our first segment. So, my name is Lowell, pronouns he, him, and this is my pick for this year for the games, plural, that I liked the best. As you're going to hear with all of the other hosts, we have some categories and some additional caveats. There are a number of games that I really, really loved this year, but were kind of my runners-up. Games that I would definitely play again in a heartbeat. Those include Fate of Cthulhu. I thought that was a great version of Fate. It was a chance to play Fate with somebody else running this year, and I really liked it. I Hunt, another Fate game. I think it's dynamite. That's the game of the gig economy and monster hunting. I think that's really good. And then for another sort of non-PBTA game, Agon, or Agon, however you say that, which came out from Evil Hat. It's the Greek myths game I think it's really good. It has a little bit of a competitive element some people don't like. And then Pipe Dream would be another one. The sort of the pastoral hobbit mystery solving game is just really fun. And I had a great time with that. 3 PBTA games also fell into the runners-up, and that would be Free from the Yoke, which is, I think, the strongest of the Legacy Life Among the Ruins games. Brindlewood Bay, I think Jason did a dynamite job with that design. It's a mystery game, and I love mysteries. I had a great time running that. The arcs that we got with the characters were really, really fun. And then kind of a surprise, the free Made to the Ascension PBTA game that Holden Shearer put out. It's really good. I just did it because I wanted to try it out, but it's strong and would sustain itself for a campaign. And I know this coming year I'm going to do like a quarterly for that because it gave me what I wanted out of Mage in a much lighter version, and everyone had a great time with it. So those are games that were runners-up. There's another game that I love, but I disqualified, and that's Hearts of Wulin, because I wrote it and because we should have had it out this year, but delays killed it. And so to kind of, for myself, I'm taking it off that list because I feel bad that we didn't get it out the door, that circumstances and situations worked against us, and I fell down on several points, not pushing people on things and not getting things done myself. So that goes off the list, even though I had a great year with those games. Like, really good sessions.
It really was the hotness with the Gauntlet, too.
And that's not with me pushing it. Like,
no, there will be times when I'll just mention on the Slack, I want to do so-and-so. The Hearts of Wulin will be the first thing that people will see. There was so much demand. Yeah. Like, when are you doing the Star Wars Hearts of Wulin, Rich? A lot of buzz.
And then they went, yeah, you could do it in Fate, Rich. That's the second thing they say, right?
Yeah.
Also, games that I didn't pick because they are just hacks. I had great games that were slight adjustments of the systems, that were reskins of things that were amazing. The Free from the Yoke that I did with Legend of the Five Rings was the best L5R game I've ever played. It gave me everything I wanted out of L5R. Our game of Star Trek Adventures with the Express rules, I have loved because we've leaned into it being a TV show. And we comment on that, and the rules are super light. Veil Fantasy, I love the Veil. And I think it works really well for a fantasy game to kind of explore what it's like to live in a city. It needs some more polishing, but I think it's really fun and really strong. And then what I ran from running to come to this recording, Nice Black Agents, the Gumshoe Spies versus Vampires game, I changed some of the resolution to make the standard resolution PBTA, and it's been great. Combats go fast, the action sequences go fast, but you still got the investigative stuff. Just dynamite. But those are all reskins, hacks, so let's put those aside. My game of the year came down to two things. One of them is Corandon, Make God Bleed, which I loved. Had a great time with it. It was a super game. Brilliant, and I think everybody should buy it. I think it's got a great D6 system. It's a whole set of non-Western fantasy and fantastical elements that are a delight to dive into and are a great gateway to explore that material. But the author has written a slightly new version of it where the rules have actually kind of changed pretty significantly. I haven't played that yet, so that makes it kind of slide a little bit to second place, even though I think it's great. I really do. So my pick of the year, though, is Yokai Hunter Society, which is by Kima Gonzalez. It's a Tunnel Goons hack, but it's a game about a society of monster hunters in late 19th century Japan at the time when there's a big set of societal changes and industrialization, and you're kind of behind the scenes, and You're trying to deal with supernatural creatures in a world that industrialization is happening. And all of that is very lightly written. There's a lot of great ideas there. The random generator table for the characters and for the materials is really solid. The game is super simple, but the mechanics beautifully reinforce the feel. Like, at first when I looked at it, I was like, oh, these numbers are really tough. Like, it's going to be hard to make the success numbers that you need to get. But it does force the players to work together. It forces them to think creatively, and the random generation of the characters themselves also creates evocative stories. I think it's really good. If you like monster hunting games, if you're interested in a different look at Japanese society in a time that is closer to like Rurouni Kenshin, it's a great game. Beautifully done, beautiful art, and Kima also took a little adventure that I wrote up and laid it out and put art in it and has it up on their website. And they've also supported the game with a bunch of other materials. So,
oh yeah, beautifully supported.
It's really good. Definitely worth picking up. It's certainly my game of the year. I think Yokai Hunter Society is a great game, and one I will be definitely writing again in 2021. So let's hear from the community.
Hi, this is Horst, and my favorite game of 2020 is Ultraviolet Grasslands by Luca Reyes. Ultraviolet Grasslands is a psychedelic point crawl across a vast and wondrous landscape full of giant biomechanical machines, singing radiation ghosts, and prismatic beings wearing colorful spacesuits. The epic journey takes players from the Violet City, a trading hub ruled by manipulative cat lords, all the way to the mysterious Black City at the end of the world. All locations in between are detailed enough to allow referees to run the game straight out of the book, and short enough to do it with zero prep. Furthermore, the book is fully illustrated with amazing artwork, reminiscent of Möbius comics, which helps GMs and players to get into the right mindset. If you love acid trips, without actually having to take drugs, the lyrics of 70s krautrock bands, or just want to have a beautiful art book for your coffee table, UVG is a must-have.
Hi, I'm Maria Marabe, and for my favorite games of 2020, I'm going to talk briefly both about Hearts of Wulin and Good Society because I couldn't pick between them. So the first game I'll talk about is Hearts of Wulin, which is a game of wuxia melodrama, and I was lucky enough to try and play it a bunch of different times, and I enjoyed it all of the times that I played it. I really liked that in character creation, you create characters who are super entangled with each other at the beginning. They have a lot of baggage that they're already carrying around, and that just flavors the rest of their interactions throughout the story as they are facing different situations and maybe trying to do things in front of someone they once loved but have now fallen out of love with, or they're trying really hard to claim the throne, but they don't know whether or not this is something they should do. So there's a lot of nice inter-character relationship driving decisions that your character might make. I also really like the inner conflict mechanism because it just puts a little bit more into that being faced with emotional turmoil, that your character has to make these choices, and then if they don't succeed at this role, they might have to flee the scene or mark an element, which makes life a little bit harder in the future. And I just really like that juicy little bit of extra torment added in. The second game I'm going to talk about is Good Society, which I was also able to play a lot of and in a lot of different flavors. So Good Society is a game of emulating the way that a Jane Austen novel works, but the system allows for a lot of hacking, and so I've played a lot of different games where it's like maybe mecha, or maybe it's a murder mystery, or maybe you're a member of a fake court and you watch that court change over 400 years and see what sort of turmoil there might be. And I just really like this game because it allows for a lot of collaborative storytelling, and because it allows you to check in with other players and see if this is a direction that they want the story to go. I like that there's a lot of emphasis on being able to say, okay, I have this idea. Will you accept this token to make this something that your character does? And you can always say no, or you can say yes, but I'm going to add this complication to it. And I think that a game built on sharing these ideas and making sure everyone is on the same page about it is really great, and also allows you to really explore deep, dramatic, maybe intense moments that your characters face. So those are my top 2 games of 2020, and I super hope that everyone has a great rest of the year and continues to play amazing games.
Hello everybody, this is Gerrit. My game of the year is Radio Silence by Hannah J. Gray. Radio Silence was one of the winners of the Game in the Curry online game contest earlier this year. It is designed to be played online. And as some of you know, that is one of my favorite activities, games which are especially designed for being played online and use something which you can't easily replicate at the table. Though with Radio Silence, you could somehow do that. Radio Silence is about 2 lovers who can only communicate with each other through songs and song titles. So in that game, you spend 45 minutes not talking to each other, but just sending one after another songs. And the titles of the song, they make your communication, they make your conversation, and the song titles you listen to fully. And I love that game because it's highly contemplative. Played it at Gauntlet Community Open Gaming with Greg Gelder. That was fabulous. Yeah, so please give it a try. It can be the best evening of the week for you if you try it. Good luck. Bye.
Hi, this is Blake Ryan from Australia. Yeah, I'm going to go for my game of the year with Alien Dark. It's basically Alun has taken Cthulhu Dark and put it in the Aliens universe. You know, I played a couple of games on it, but one that sort of stuck out in August. Instead of the usual, someone's very task-orientated, someone's sort of the team player and gets people to work together, and then someone else is the heel, the real bugger that screws everyone else over. Instead of that usual sort of dynamic, we were all the bastard. So it was a bit like Fiasco in the sense that you could all see things are going badly for everybody, but it was fun. We were having fun while we were doing it. And also, it was a bit like Paranoia in the sense that everybody was screwing everybody over. So it was a good break from the usual. We were cooperating as players and as characters. It was just a lot of fun. While we weren't in the spotlight, we were shaking our heads and laughing at what was going on. And just, there was one part, someone had a face hugger in like a big test tube capsule, and they got attacked by a different face hugger. I grabbed the capsule and ran off, and then promptly got cornered by a full warrior alien. Just one mess into another. It was a lot of fun. Happy gaming all.
All right. Let's come to our next host's pick. So, Jammi, what have you chosen for your game of the year for 2020?
Oh my gosh, it was so hard. So I have to first say there's a lot of good games that I didn't mention. So this is a very subjective list. Before I get to my personal game of the year, I'll talk about some runner-ups too, or some other games and moments that were really special to me. So for me, the best series, we got to have 8 sessions of it. The best series for me was Girl by Moonlight in A Maze of Dreams. So Girl by Moonlight is, Lowell, you had these beautiful rules for yourself, and I completely ignored all of them.
I think that's absolutely fair. It's all subjective.
It's all subjective. So Girl by Moonlight was in playtesting when we played the game, and it's not quite finished. It hasn't come out yet. It's the PDF, if I'm going to be honest, is not fully complete. There were some moments where I was like, I'm just going to make stuff up because I don't quite understand this part. But it's a beautiful game. And the reason why it was my best series is because I was so lucky to get great players that leaned into the themes of the magical girl genre. So there was a lot of the pain of growing up, the fear of adulthood, queer romance, what it means to be a hero, and just really beautiful stuff. It was always super great every session. We got to play with my favorite playset. They're all good, by the way, but this one I really like. It's called In a Maze of Dreams. So in Girl by Moonlight, you get to choose which series playset you want, and they're all very different from each other. And this one, In a Maze of Dreams, really draws upon Serial Experiments Lane and Paprika, which is an anime that I really love, but I don't get to see, inspiring a lot of RPGs, so that's why I loved it so much. It was so much fun for me as a GM to run these very surreal dream sequences. There was a conspiracy that they have to uncover, and it really felt sinister and interesting and strange. It was such a beautiful time, so definitely my best series. And then my best session was in Pasión de las Pasiones. It was my first time running a series. Lowell was in it. It was really amazing. So my favorite was the last session where because we had a twin, right? So Lowell's playing a twin, and so there was another twin that showed up, and at some point, I think it was the third session, Lowell established that there's a third one, so they were triplets instead. So the last session was the triplets on the roof fighting it out. It was so funny because, like, the players couldn't quite figure out who was who, and I thought that was, like, perfect telenovela moment. Very good stuff. Ended up in the pool. There was a shootout. It was so dramatic. We don't know who really survived. You were so great, Lowell. Everyone was so fantastic, like just really throwing themselves into it. The best game that I couldn't stop thinking about constantly was Changeling the Lost, which is a PBTA hack that you put together, Lowell and Sherri, and I really just love it so much. I know Sherri keeps calling it a beautiful mess, but I don't know. It's so perfect. I just really love it. So the focus on found family, relationships, and emotions was so beautiful. I'd spend days thinking about what happened, what would happen next. It really helped me grow as a player. Like, it really pushed me. I've been running games for like years and years, but I hardly got to play. And it was through the Changeling game that I really felt finally comfortable as a player. Like, I felt much better about how my play was. You know, you just had to give me like a sad, dark character.
Oh, that was a sad, dark
Very
character.
sad, very dark.
Yeah. It just comes so naturally. I'm such a happy person, but you know, I really loved it. My favorite part was the burgeoning love triangle between Robert, Patrick, and myself. It was so funny. It was so hilarious. Like, it can... I've always wanted to have more romance in my games, and it always felt a little awkward before, but I'm really glad that now, with safety tools being a part of the culture, especially here in the Gauntlet and in other ways, it just feels a lot more fun playing out the romance aspects. And so, yeah. And then the next game I want to briefly talk about for best game mechanics for me, I was really thinking about this, but I think it has to go to the Sprawl Touch Prime because...
Ooh.
Yeah, because I love Shadowrun. I have very, very fond memories of my time with it when I played it. I will never play it again. I will never touch Shadowrun, the system again. It is... I really love it. I really love the game we played, but the mechanics were just... I was struggling with it constantly. My GM was struggling with it. Everyone was struggling with it. So I really loved how the Sprawl Touch Prime took everything I loved about Shadowrun, all of the fun aspects, and just made it even more fun. I loved how we had to roll to see how well we did after the job, if we got paid or not. I thought that was super fun, a good way of introducing complications. I got to play the Thrall, the playbook, which is super interesting. It is something I wish was in the original Shadowrun game, but basically it's a cyberpunk warlock, absolute perfection. Really loved it. I think that was when I started playing himbos, and now I'm attached to himbos. Like, I really love playing that archetype now. I liked taking the runes, so you'd have to roll your dice, and then you try to match up the numbers. So you try to do magic, you're not sure what magic you're going to do, you have a table that you refer to see like, oh, I match this and this, but if I use this spell, I lose this dice, then I won't get access to that spell. And it was really fun, though. I really liked that. It made every turn super unpredictable and fun, really engaging each time. And as a player, I would have to focus on what other people were doing all the time to see how I could support them. So I really, really like that playbook. I thought that's super smart. It's not something I see very often. But yeah, so all of that.
And Rich got that wonderful gnome NPC in that game with the hidden romance there, which I liked.
So good, so good. Really good stuff. Just an amazing game all around. So everything I mentioned, I'll definitely be playing more next year for sure. I'm going to squeeze that in. But dun 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 dun. So Jammi's Game of the Year. Okay, so I just had to go with this game because it was really the game that I had the most fun with. So it's Apocalypse Keys. Disclaimer, I made the game and I'm working on the game. So it's currently in beta. I'm very embarrassed, but I really do love the game. So people on the Gauntlet have been very supportive and very patient with me as I run many games that I work on, including Sherri. Like, When Sherri was talking about playtesting earlier, that was mostly me dragging Sherri to every playtest I had. But Apocalypse Keys, it's the game that I've always wanted to play, and I think that's why I love it so much, why I've been working so hard on it. It takes what I love from so many different games that I got to play this year. So I have the mystery-solving mechanics that I discovered in Brindlewood Bay, which is, I feel, the best way to run a mystery in a TTRPG for me. I got the bonds of Hearts of Wulin, the meltdown mechanic of Passion de las Passiones, the token system of Liberté, the magic and horror of Changeling the Lost. So it's this beautiful Frankenstein child. Somehow it worked. Like, I'm doing a lot of work to streamline it, but I was honestly shocked that it just worked. I was expecting it to crash and burn, and it didn't. Apocalypse Keys focuses on what I wish were present in more games for my taste and what really moves me. So stuff like found family, social interactions, over-the-top powers that create fun consequences and larger-than-life challenges, the ability to play as heroic monsters holding back the apocalypse. I loved how the game can, go for really big, bombastic moments, but it can also have really quiet moments. There were a few times when I ran the game or played the game that I felt like we were going to start crying at any moment over how genuine something was, and then we would go beat up a monster in the next minute. It was a lot of fun. And Apocalypse Keys is so special to me because it helped me process 2020. It really helped empower me. I started writing Apocalypse Keys exactly when the world started to shift towards its own apocalypse in a way. So, which is why by the time I got to play the game, each session was super cathartic. I loved every single character everyone made. I'm so invested in their stories, and their fall towards their doom and prophecy has been really fun to watch. I really had to pick Apocalypse Keys because it really embodies what I most love about the Gauntlet, in that it's a very supportive space that's very excited about indie game design, that I can play with people who offer such fantastic insight on what makes a game fun. And so that's why I went with Apocalypse Keys.
You put it out there, and a bunch of other people have been running it.
Yeah,
right?
I've been so excited. I'm glad people have been recording the sessions because it's been fun to watch.
Awesome. Let's hear from some more community members.
Hi, this is Ryberg. I use he, him pronouns, and I go by Rock and Roll on the Gauntlet Slack. 2020 was a pretty good year for gaming for me. I have 2 kids, so it's kind of limited, but I got to play actually in a great session of Legacy run by Lowell Francis at the beginning of this year. And Legacy is just such a cool game with the high level and then the character level engagement. Really enjoyed that. Someday, hopefully, I will be brave enough to run it myself. Also got to run a good session of Scum and Villainy recently with some folks on the Gauntlet, and really had a great time with that. I've just enjoyed playing with everyone that has been in games with me this year, so looking forward to a great 2021 and running some more stuff.
Hi there, my name is Alun, and I've been playing with and running games with the Gauntlet for 2 and a bit years now. And I suppose that my choice of the game of the year is inevitably influenced by my experience of it on the Gauntlet. Trust me, I've never had a bad game on the Gauntlet, but in the last 12 months, some games have delivered an experience which I've really valued. I would have a short list that starts with Pasiones de los Pasiones. Forgive me for the pronunciation. I got to play in one of Gauntlet's regular GMs, Puckett's 2 shots this year. That provided an enormous amount of fun and drama and feels. I got to play a scenery-chewing El Jefe, and in a Western-themed game, to play a violently conspiratorial and scheming La Doña. I don't know which of those 2 characters is my favorite, but they're both high on the list. Rather selfishly, I'm going to put a game of my own in here, my own World War II occult horror game, Project Dark Prometheus. Search Dark Prometheus on itch.io if you're interested. I was brought up on a diet, because we only had a limited number of channels back in the day, a diet of British war films of the late 40s, 50s, and 60s. So running a game set in World War II with the added advantage of the Cthulhu mythos and other Nazi occult shenanigans just scratches a certain kind of nostalgia itch for that time and my time watching it. And it's also provided some fabulous opportunities to see some returning characters across the last 12 months who've played in several games. I think particularly of the tortured Arthur Blake, the academic with dirty hands, and the no-nonsense Sergeant Strauss, played by two Gauntlet regulars, Will and Paul. But all of that is just to build up to what has to be my game of the year this year, and that game is Fate of Cthulhu from Eagle Hat. They've done a great job, I think, flipping the Cthulhu genre, which I have to say, apart from machine gunning them, I quite like Pulp Cthulhu, but most of the other Cthulhu games that I've played, I don't like the downward spiral of inevitable failure. And so what Eagle Hat has done is to create a game that is much more 12 Monkeys or Terminator than it is Shadows over Innsmouth. Time travelers return to the present to stop an apocalyptic rise of an old one with the help of present-day characters they recruit. I think it's a great introduction to Fate. Fate has a mixed reputation on the Gauntlet. It doesn't get run a lot. I think it should be run more. I am hoping to run more in the next year. But I think this is a really great introduction to Fate, particularly if you play it with a light touch. It's the simplest full-fat Fate, I think, because it's built out from Fate Condensed, which you can get to pay what you want on drive-through. Worth a look, guys. Sometimes Fate for new players appears to be incredibly crunchy and mechanical and require a lot of input. There isn't a playbook you pick up. You have to come up with aspects and stunts and all that stuff. Well, I think that this is a version of Fate which scaffolds a lot of that. Fate Condensed has a very simple way of defining aspects and also a simple way of defining stunts, which I think reduces the barrier, scaffolds new players. It provides really significant milestones at regular intervals, which means that the characters grow in capability as they confront the increasing challenge of what are 5 different, well-structured campaigns that come in the book. Each of those campaigns is fabulously self-contained. You choose which of the 5 great old ones you're trying to avoid the apocalyptic rise of. And once chosen, you have 4 significant events in the timeline to that apocalypse, which as the characters then set out to derail. And there's enough in those events to support a relatively new Fate GM. All the key protagonists are provided, along with examples of other ones you can throw in. But the clever thing is that there are flags for the characters to hit in order to cause ripples in time, which will make future events and the final rise of the old one easier to overcome. That's really clever, I think. And at the same time, it provides a chance for the great old one to have its own ripples that make it more difficult to stop if those characters give in to the temptation of easy power in exchange for corruption. It's a really cleverly balanced set of campaigns, which would be an ideal, I think, starting point. If you want to kick off Fate with a group, then I think this gives you a very nice, neat, you could play one of the arcs. We did it in 5 sessions. That was very tight. I think you could give it time to breathe in 5 or 10, somewhere in there. And it would be a really good self-contained introduction to Fate. I thoroughly recommend it. Seriously, it's great.
Hi, my name is Will, and my game of the year is Brindlewood Bay by Jason Cordova. It's been a very, very busy year of gaming for me, so it had some stiff competition, but honestly, Brindlewood Bay really pushed me to play a completely different character and to approach things in a completely different way than I would do in any other system that I can think of. One thing that I really love about Brindlewood Bay is the open-ended mysteries and how every person that you meet may be a suspect, maybe a potential victim, or could just be a complete red herring. And the same goes for all of the clues that you uncover. I think there's so much elegance and creative design in that theorize move that finishes off every game, but it's also a terrible, terrible burden for you if you get it wrong. I was lucky enough to play with an extremely wonderful group of players and a wonderful GM who made the whole of Brindlewood feel as though it was a living, breathing town. And honestly, the experience I had in that game made me fear that theorize roll every single time it came up. I loved making all of the connections. I loved putting all the pieces together to come up with some contrived and dramatic story about how this murder at the Great Brindlewood Bake Off matches up with the dark conspiracy that's underneath our town. But I hated rolling that dice because one time you get it wrong. And when you get it wrong, you find out that you're not clever people solving crimes. You're stupid people being manipulated by far cleverer women than you. And I have never felt any kind of anxiety on a death saving throw as I do every time we had to roll that dice after failing so badly. We didn't quite finish off our run of Brindlewood Bay. We didn't get to the Void Mystery. We were just one step off. I'm really hoping that we can finish that off at some point, but even if we don't, I'll always remember Brindlewood Bay and the wonderful people that I played with. And my hope is that I'll be confident enough to run it soon in the future.
Hi, my name's Dave Walker, and my game of the year is Masks: A New Generation by Magpie Games. I've run over 40 sessions of Masks on the Gauntlet this year, and I've got to play in 8. I set myself a challenge at the start of the year to try running different superhero genres using Mask, so a big shout out to my players for Mask Cosmic, our Guardians of the Galaxy type adventure, Mask Titans, where we had heroes standing in the shadows of Earth's Mightiest Heroes, Mass Arcane, where we went after a 90s Vertigo feel, and Mass Neighborhood, where we had friendly neighborhood shenanigans going on in Tri-Town with the Gridlock Guardians. Masks is just an absolute joy to run. It is one of my favourite Powered by the Apocalypse games, and it captures the tropes of the genre so well. If you love Young Justice, if you love teen comic books, this is the game for you. You will have moments of heartache. You will get to have battles with maniacal villains, and you might just get to save the world as long as you're not in detention. It is a pleasure to run, and it has continued to surprise me as how flexible it is to be able to play in almost any superhero genre. If there's one superhero game you must play, and if there's one by the Power of the Apocalypse game which is for you, it's this. Is that the end for my experiment? Heck no. Phase 2 is coming Marvel style. We're going to go into Adam West Batman with Mask 66. We're going to go and see some Kirby Crackle with Masks Fantastic, looking at the Fantastic Four and the joys of being a superhero family. And then we're going to go back to basics for some of our new players on the Gauntlet so they get a chance to play Masks straight out of the box and get to grips with it as a game. If things go well, Phase 3, I think it's time for a crossover with Gauntlet City Comics.
All right. Rich Rogers, before we get too far, again, everything you hear here that sounds good is because of Rich in all the podcast. Just know that.
Aww.
So, Rich, with that in mind, and you've also come in and helped us out and pinch hit, co-hosted several times throughout this year. We always appreciate that.
Thank you.
Rich, what is your pick? What do you have to say about 2020?
Oh, 2020 was... there were a lot more games to play, and so I did. At current schedule, there are a few games left to play, but if all of them make, I will have played in 290 sessions this year.
Oh my God. Amazing.
Which is 10% more than last year, which was my record forever, ever in my whole life last year, and I demolished it. So, yeah, I played a lot. I had 2 groups that were face-to-face. I was so excited to actually have a mix of Gauntlet online and some actual, talking to people and sharing their air, and then we found out that would kill you. So both of them ended up moving online, so that was pretty cool and trying at times, but I learned a lot. But the new games thing is also something I really enjoyed. Didn't do the Ladder of Insanity. Got trashed in the Play New Games thing by Dunna.
Mm-hmm.
Dunna, I'm not even in the rear view for him at this point. In fact, I might be in front of him because he's about to lap me. I only played 32 new games this year. That's it. Yeah, that's it. It's sad. I only ran 18. I got lazy this year. Anyway. Best series for me was with Sherri, the Gauntlet Comics Masks to Power Beyond Doubt series that we ran over 4 months. We started off for 2 months, played Masks characters in high school, and then they graduated and became a full-on Supers team, and we got to try out Power Beyond Doubt. It was really nice to have a quote-unquote campaign on the Gauntlet. The Gauntlet often... We don't have many campaigns because of the RSVP system, the idea that we post games every month, and this was fun because it was a little bit of campaign, but also still having open table, some new blood in every month, but we still had some staples. It kind of felt like a comic where you changed writers every bit, and so it's
Yeah, awesome.
Which I totally dug, and it was interesting to see the transition of high school player characters to grown-ups, and the reinterpretation of them, not just from a social standpoint, but also from a mechanical standpoint as we migrated to a different game. That's something I've really enjoyed. That was a really good series. The best weekend, I've just made up this category because I saw Jammi's on the notes, and I'm like, oh, I'll just go. Best weekend.
So, yeah.
Just happened. The Star Wars Saturdays Special Edition weekend was this delightful thing where the community, fake Life Day, fake Special Edition, holiday special, all that stuff mixed into one. 19 games over 2 days. 65 seats filled with all those games. Games from Apocalypse World, Hut Cartel, and my Monster of the Week hack, to crazy reskins. Like, what even is Squeak Easy, Jammi? Like mice running some kind of...
Yeah.
And then you made that into Star Wars. It's crazy. I love it.
I did. I just changed the rodents into droids, and it was so good.
Alexi ran his PBTA game in playtest, Plutonian Shore. Alan Dries hacked up his Night's Dark Operators to run a game. We had Thirsty Sword lesbians that became Thirsty Lightsaber lesbians. Worldwide Wrestling in Star Wars. What? Way to go, Joe. A final girl hack. The Final Jedi. Escape from Rancor Island. Traverser. Star Wars World, of course, the old one that started it all for Star Wars Saturdays. It was amazing. Like, I couldn't participate in but a few, but seeing on the Slack when people were high-fiving each other and getting excited and talking about the best moments, it was wonderful. Oh, right, and Greg Gelder's reskin of Skeletons as the droids. Cody ran that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Just amazing. I really, really enjoyed that whole weekend. It was just a gift. So wonderful.
Yeah, it was so special.
Yeah.
Everyone had so much fun.
Yeah, it was exciting to watch. Everyone was having a good time, so.
Completely out of the community. Like, community came up with it, did it, implemented it. It was amazing.
Agreed. So let's talk about favorite games. My short list, I already heard about one of them, Star Trek Adventures Express. The thing is, like, the game as written, I don't know if it would be a favorite game for me, but the hack that Lowell skimmed out of it, it was just one of those where the whole group is on the same page and we needed that cozy game. Mm-hmm. It was the coziest game. Oh, so good. Definitely my favorite cozy game of the year. Other favorite game was Before the Rebellion. That's what Vincent Baker's calling it. It's a game I've talked about on the podcast before. Vincent just released, like literally days ago, a 27-page version of this. It is like playable now. But I still think it's a little incomplete. He even calls it playtest in the PDF release, so it doesn't qualify for me. Comrades was a game that I was quite surprised by. It was so flexible. It was a Star Wars game, but I didn't change anything other than it's not guns, it's blasters, and everything else Comrades handled. It was really built to do that. Really, really smartly written. The bond mechanics, the pathways to revolution were so thrilling. They really reinforced the genre of this kind of revolutionary tale. And I'm super excited next year when I get to run Moonpunk and see the flip side of the coin when it comes to revolutionary games in Star Wars. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
But my favorite game of the year has to be Becky Annison of Black Armada Games' Bite Marks.
Oh, so good, so good.
Yeah. Bite Marks is a game about a werewolf pack. It's got a pack playbook, so it's a PBTA game, but it has a pack playbook, so there's a little bit of some of the cool stuff that you see in a Forged in the Dark game. The moves are hyper-focused, but nothing feels like it's missing. It's very elegant in that way. I love the idea that in the game you can play one of the non-alpha playbooks, but at any point you can make a challenge for the alpha, whether it's a PC or NPC. If you win that challenge, you now have that playbook. You're the alpha now. It was funny in the group how there was this like long staring match of all the people who were just on the edge of like making that challenge for the alpha. Got to the point where I finally said, okay, guys, like we're going to be done soon. Somebody needs to like step up. And boy, did they. It was crazy. The spill and provoke spill moves force emotional honesty, which just feels right for werewolves. The idea of that unhappy family reunion where they're like these buried secrets that just all come out, and we've got moves to engage that and reward it, and it actually builds up your pack pool, so your pack gets more and more powerful from these really honest conversations where you tell someone what you really feel, which is great. I love that. The XP system that pushes both halves of the werewolf, so you can't really quote-unquote level up if you get all your XP running around as a human. You got to get bare-ass naked and turn into a wolf and go do wolf stuff, or you're going to be stuck. And I like that. It's like sometimes, if the GM would just let you have more wolf stuff, then you'd be happy. So it's like you get those feedback where it's like, hey, can we go do wolf stuff? It's awesome because that's what the game's about, right? So Bite Marks is definitely the favorite game that I've played in 2020, and there were, as I said before, a lot.
Yeah, but Bite Marks is so good because I got to play the alpha as a PC, and there's always that trepidation that, like, am I not being a good enough alpha? Is someone going to take it from me? So I love that tension. And then one time I was playing a game, and then Matthew was playing Bite Marks downstairs because we're both on the Gauntlet now. And he came up and interrupted my game saying, I now became the alpha. It was an accident.
That's awesome.
Didn't mean to.
That's awesome.
But yeah, Bite Marks is fantastic. Really, really
and,
good.
No, I will not be making that into Star Wars. It just is what it is.
Awesome.
It's a beautiful animal.
Good to have that disclaimer out here for us.
But
I was about to ask.
What I'm going to ask is, should we have like a World of Darkness revamp weekend? Because we've got werewolf, we've got changeling, I heard mage.
Let's do
I'm thinking we got almost all the pieces.
Urban Shadow 2nd Edition is really hot.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Let's
Ooh.
do
We
it.
could do
Let's
it.
do it. We could do it.
Well,
Anyway.
let's move on
Sorry.
and hear from some more community members.
Hello, my name is Lloyd Jan, and you may know me from dumb crap under the internet that I do and terrible hot takes that I take. And I would like to recommend my favorite game of the year this year is Mouse Ritter by Isaac Williams. Now, when someone recommends something that you know is going to be good, you normally have to care what the person is recommending. I, for one, am popularly known not to like OSR games of any kind or type. So when I tell you that Mouse Ritter, an OSR type game, is legit, I fully and 100% mean it. You play mice for all intents and purposes, going on adventures almost like Mouse Scout style, but a lot more loose and light form. There's magic, there's casting, there's maintaining inventory, all of that. But the game itself, it stretches past all of this for three things. One, it is incredibly fast. Even for an OSR game, it is speedy as heck. Two, it uses the multi-cell system for inventory. The same inventory type that you get from Path of Exile and in Diablo, where you have items that occupy certain slots. It uses that as well for it. There are physical items you get in the box set that will slip on and cover it up and would take up inventory space, so you know what to use and what not to use. Also, when you take damage or you gain conditions occupy spaces. So you being tired or exhausted lessens the amount of stuff you can carry with you to keep the adventure going on. And three, I recommend games that I know people can get, but I also recommend games that you probably already have. And all of you already have Mouse Ritter. Why? Because it was in the bundle for racial justice on itch.io. Go there, take a look at it, grab it from there. If you think it's good enough that you want a physical copy, they just did a full reprint of this beautiful, tiny little book, this lovely hardback book. Or if you're me, you're going to get the box set, which is totally worth getting. And you will take a look at that, see all the cool little toys and stuff they put in there, including stickers, like an extra adventure, a really cool variation of the book itself, and a whole bunch of toolbox of resources and items you can use to play through the world. Highly recommend Mouse Ritter. When you get a chance, go for it. Thank you very much.
Hello, it's Alexi Sargent here of Cloven Pine Games, and I'm excited to record my contribution for the Gauntlet Game of the Year. An honorable mention to my own game, Checkpoint Midnight. Yes, I know, giving an honorable mention to my own game, not exactly sporting, but it really is the game I have played the most this year, and I've had the good fortune to not only get to run it, but also get to play in a quarterly that the wonderful Jim Crocker has been running for me to learn what it's like on the player side. Checkpoint Midnight is a game about Cold War spies who have supernatural powers. It's about navigating the shadows of Cold War Vienna and juggling shifting loyalties. And I have really loved getting to play this game with a bunch of different people and see the wild spy characters they create and the cool stories we've been able to tell. People seem to really dig it, and I'm excited to keep working on developing this game further based on the feedback I get from playtesters. So that's an honorable mention to Checkpoint Midnight. But I want to give my Game of the Year award to Escape from Dino Island. This is such a cool game designed by Sam Roberts and Sam Tung and available on itch.io. If you Google Escape from Dino Island or search it on itch.io, I think it will come up. A very nifty game based on media like Jurassic Park and Lost, where you play as characters trying to solve the mysteries of and ultimately escape from the titular Dino Island. I got the chance this year to play the game, to run the game, and to draw from the game when I was designing a game of my own. All of those were cool experiences. Playing it was an excellent part of one of the Gauntlet community open gaming sessions we had this year. Running it, I ran it as a 2-part series set in the Gauntlet comics universe, so we got to really have some great comic booky moments, including a fire-breathing Tyrannosaurus Rex. And then drawing from it, well, this game has some really cool mechanics. There's a set of safety moves that the PCs can trigger when they find a second to catch their breath, getting the lay of the land, scavenging for supplies, etc., and a set of peril moves for dealing with immediate danger. Run, hide, fight. The peril moves are very exciting, but only the safety moves hook into the core game mechanic, the stories the PCs tell. And that is really interesting. I love the built-in storytelling mechanic, the moments where the game pauses and one of the PCs gets to tell a story about their past, give us more insight into the character. So in my own game, a game I co-wrote with the wonderful Leah Labresco Sargent, my wife, Back Again from the Broken Land, I have that story mechanic playing a large role as well. That was definitely inspired for me by the way stories are used in Escape from Dino Island to fill in character backstory and give us moments away from the frenetic action of the dinosaur adventure. Back Again from the Broken Land uses those stories to look back at the journey that these characters have gone on and the adventure they were part of before they are now making their way slowly back home after the fall of the Doomslord. So Back Again from the Broken Land you can find in Codex Home, and as I said, Escape from Dino Island you can find on itch.io. Definitely check it out and give some money to those creators for the cool game they put together that is my Game of the Year.
Hi, this is Dan Brown, recording my Game of the Year for the Gauntlet. I have been with the Gauntlet for about 1.5 years, and I really I'm so grateful for the opportunity to play with lots of different people and try out lots of different games. I'm going to break the rules. I've got 2 games of the year. I will do them both very quickly. The first one is Apocalypse Keys by the Gauntlet's own Jammi. I really love this game. I love being a monster in the world. I am a big fan of Hellboy, so it was great to be able to play in a world like that one. And what I love about this game is both the character creation process as well as the game mechanics do such a good job of being evocative of the genre. What's interesting about Hellboy and stories like this is the entangled relationships that they have with each other and with the world around them, and that creates a really great foundation for storytelling. At the same time, the mechanics draw on this idea of the monsters having a well of darkness that they draw upon. And this idea that they can go too far is sort of indicative of this perpetual discomfort that the characters have with their own monstrosity, really, right? Their perpetual discomfort with their role in the world and trying to come to terms with that. The fact that both the character creation and the mechanics are so evocative of the genre makes this just a joy to play. I do hope to have the opportunity to run an Apocalypse Keys game sometime next year. Apocalypse Keys is a Powered by the Apocalypse game, and my other choice for Game of the Year is an OSR game. It's been a long time since I played anything involving a D20, so this was a real throwback for me, but I really enjoyed the simplicity of the mechanics here. It was just a pleasant surprise not to have to deal with lots of different tables. So I love the simplicity of the system. In Godbound, you play demigods, and the character creation process in this game is especially enjoyable. You pick 3 words, sort of like power words, that describe the domains over which you have power. They're sort of words that you inherited from the gods that have been destroyed, which allows you to become a demigod. You also picked some facts about your character, and again, these facts have a mechanical benefit to you in the game. I had so much fun playing this game. I think it's not a coincidence that I loved my characters so much in both of these games, and maybe that's why they became my games of the year. But I think they both share something else, and that is this exploration of power and how we deal with power. Role-playing games, going back in history, have dealt with underpowered characters slowly growing and earning more and more power, leveling up, as it were. These games are interesting because you start out with a tremendous amount of power. And so this becomes less an exploration in the growth of power and more an exploration of the growth of control, the growth of maturity, the growth that deals with how do you put so much power into good use. I had so much fun playing both of these games. I do hope to play them more again. Either way, I cannot wait to play more with the Gauntlet in 2021.
Hi, my name is David Morrison, and this is the 3rd year I'm recording for the Game of the Year podcast. 2020 has been a good year for games and pretty much nothing else, I think is fair to say. I've played a couple of games. I do want to give a quick shout out to some of the Firebrands, The King is Dead based games, For the Honor by Quinn Vega, and Once Again Into the Void by our very own Jamila Nejadi. They're really good fun. I've been having a lot of fun playing these games over the year. I also wanted to just say this is finally, after having played a lot of it over the last couple of years, I finally got around to running a game of Masks, which has been great fun. I've enjoyed that a lot. But the game I actually want to call out as my game of 2020 has been an honourable mention a number of times in the past, is Hearts of Wulin by our very own Lowell Francis. Hearts of Wulin probably needs little introduction on this podcast, but it's a game of wuxia melodrama with a fantastical Chinese setting. It charts the sort of high action and deep and complicated personal relationships of a number of warriors in the Wulin. Yeah, I've had some wonderful sessions of it. I think it is now officially the PBTA game I've run the most sessions of, all of which have been here on the Gauntlet itself. I've had a lot of fun with it. I really love the evocative characters it always generates. I love how it handles that stylized combat, where the combat is always a kind of a metaphor for the underlying relationship conflicts a lot of the time. I think just all in all, it really delivers on what it sets out to do. I've had a lot of fun playing with some of the optional modules for that this time around as well, namely the supernatural and courtly modules, which I've worked in. I got to finish off my kind of loosely connected series of seasonal games at the beginning of this year. I've had a lot of fun with it. I hope my players I've had in these games have as well. I really look forward to seeing the final product. So that is my pick of the year. Thank you very much.
Sherri.
Oh.
Tell us what you're going to pick for 2020.
2020 was like the worst year. It was the worst year. But it was also the best year of my gaming life. Yeah, it was awesome. So I'm going to start out real simple. Of the games that I played this year, I played so many playtests. I had to go and call out, like, of the games that I played that are definitely published and out there games as one of my categories. And I also have to recommend iHunt. Sharp concept, smart setup. I like Fate, and this did a lot of nice things with Fate. But even if you don't like Fate or aren't familiar with it, you might want to pick it up because the abundance of great material in there and the attitude and sort of all of the things that are going on there are just really smart and really fun. It's a real kind of fresh take on things. The whole idea that the gig economy is really the scariest part. But it is really one of the freshest takes on sort of urban supernatural that I've seen in a while. I was like, this is fun. This is fun. It's working at a different level than I'm used to. You're low powered. Everything's bigger than you, meaner than you, and you're not going to win, at least economically. So it was fun. The other thing is I have to call out all of the Jammi playtests. I played a lot of games with Jammi. And of them, there's 3 of them that I want to talk about because they made me a different kind of player. So the first one I want to call out is Better the Devil Who Serves You, which was a procedural cozy right when I needed cozy so bad. And this was a sort of very slimmed down. What system was that? Is that Forged in the Dark, or what is it?
Yeah.
But
actually, it's this unrecognizable. Originally, it was a hack of Ghost Lines by John Harper, right?
Okay.
And then, but instead of like hunting ghosts on a train and suffering through that, you are demons at a butler cafe taking care of a witch child. It's unrecognizable, but it's a lot of the same systems are in place.
Yes, and it worked perfectly. It was procedural. You went through a day in the cafe where you had to make things work at the cafe, and you had to take care of your young master. And so it had a morning routine, running the cafe, taking care of the young master, and then sort of winding the day down. It was lovely. We all had crazy characters that we did really well, and then when something went wrong, it went epically wrong because we were demons and our way of reacting to it was ridiculous. It was fun and absolutely enjoyable, and as you said, it hit right when I needed something cozy and just delightful. And then Oathbreakers. All I could say is if you like disaster people drama, this is 100% disaster people. And I'm so glad I played it with Jammi, Darold, and Eli because they are the best disaster people. And I am now an aspirational disaster person. I'm working on my disaster chops. Yeah, they are so good. And then Apocalypse Keys, because this is the game that goes from just kissing nonsense to Dark Night of the Soul and then to sorting sweetener packets in the break room. It's so slice of life, horrible, all the tragedy, and then funny little coping techniques and strange moments. It's beautiful. It's kind of the life that I want for all my monstrous selves and their friends. So those are my playtest packs. If you can get all of those through the Patreon, if you are a supporter, and I assume some of those will show up on itch.io at some point, if they aren't already there. Let's see here. Of the other games that I played, the best Codex and now on DTRPG published game would be Brindlewood Bay. Hands down, awesome game. It's great. You're playing a set of elderly women who solve mysteries that get darker and more menacing, and that is so satisfying. The game's cozy and creepy and challenging. The mystery mechanic is a writer's room puzzle, not a clue-fishing guessing game. And I think the thing is that this game also has a lot of other smart metagame moves that are just fun. They make the game more fun. I'm seeing it getting hacked and having pieces of it slid into other hacks. So there's some design that's solving problems that hadn't been addressed in the PBTA space.
Yeah, 100%.
And there's a good reason people are lifting pieces out of it because it's got some really good thinking about games in it. So you do want to check it out. It's easy to find, DTRPG. The other thing I have to call out, and I will call it out every year, is what I like to call that Rich Rogers thing. He's got series that go on the weekend, and if you're playing on the Gauntlet, you're going to get in on it, and you're going to either be playing a Supers game or a Star Wars game. And over time, you'll get to play both. For my year, the highlights, and I did love the Power Beyond Doubt series, but there was something about Teens in Space and also the Hearts and Soul games that just sang for me. 2 to 3 players and a really sharp GM and a flyweight system is still magic. It will always be magic. I love story games, but boy, I will never leave my first love behind, and that is that flyweight system and players I love and a GM who is on. So good.
True.
Yeah, you never have to feel like you're missing out if you've got that. Of my hacks that I love, Free from the Yoke L5R. It was L5R my heart always wanted. It was political, romantic, tragic, heroic, and absolutely no katana fetishization.
Oh, the katanas.
Yeah, exactly. So that whole thing about playing at level of the family and then zooming into the characters for seeing what that looked like on the ground level was perfect. It actually used L5R system in a way that helped me actually get a handle on what Legacy was doing.
Mm-hmm.
So when I go back to play Legacy, I'll understand what the purpose of moving through the scope is better and have a sense of where I need to be going. But it delivered the L5R game I'd always wanted. So I assume you can get Legacy free from the yoke, but Lowell, do you have the hack for L5R available for download somewhere?
It is out there. People can check in with me, and I will send them a copy of it if they want to see it.
Just like under the table, just like shift it.
You'll still need free from the yoke.
Yes, you'll still need it. And the best thing about 2020 is I already have New Year's Eve planned, and I'm looking forward to it because it's going to be the best New Year's Eve. I'm going to be playing a playtest of Hunter's Code, which is Sam Zimmerman's Forged in the Dark game that was modeled on Monster Hunter and a ton of other games, anime, and manga sources that I love. So it's right up my alley. It's a great group. The game has been delivering everything I hope for. So if you kind of like Monster Hunter, kill 6 billion demons, any of those things, you're going to be wanting to watch for this. It will start trickling out sometime, but I don't know when yet. But my game of the year, Bum-ba-da-bum. Lowell said he couldn't use it, but I have to say Hearts of Wulin, specifically the stretch goals of the Supernatural playbooks, has been consistently every single week, every single month, the best game, the perfectest game, the game that I will always love has been Hearts of Wulin with the Supernatural playbooks, with a close second of Hearts of Wulin, Academy of the Blade. It brings so many different possibilities and so much, how to say it? There's so much heart in the game, and the supernatural makes it mysterious too. So very lovely. The moves and the new classes are right, perfect, and they really mix things up. I love Hearts of Wulin with the Supernatural playbooks.
Yeah, it's so good. It's so good. Like the Exorcist move is always so much fun. And
student moves are great too. Just so
super good.
Some fun stuff in there, yeah. Listeners, let's hear a little bit more from our community members and their picks.
Hello. This is friend and fellow Gauntleteer Darold sharing my favorite game of 2020. I would like to tell everyone about the amazing game called Apocalypse Keys by Jamila Najati of Sword Queen Games. Apocalypse Keys is a role-playing game about monsters holding back the apocalypse. They are agents who work for the Division, a mysterious organization dedicated to understanding the occult, taming the supernatural, and protecting the world. A world that is built for the mundane and for humans. A world that tries to pretend that monsters are not real. So Apocalypse Keys is a game that's inspired by Hellboy, mainly the films and the comics, but also other games that lean into stories and genres that focus on investigating the strange and the weird. It's currently in beta, but it's very playable. I have had the opportunity to play many sessions of it over the last couple of months, and I absolutely adore this game. Some of the things that I really love about this game are the fact that all of the players play as overpowered monsters who are ill-equipped to deal with their feelings. This game does an amazing job of making you feel like a truly powerful thing that is the only thing standing between the apocalypse and the rest of humanity. In our play sessions, we have seen some truly over-the-top and amazing powers that really just would break pretty much any other game that I've played, but fit right into Apocalypse Keys. There was one session in particular I remember. It was a finale where basically we destroyed an entire skyscraper and then built it back up using like monstrous powers that completely just grew and evolved out of the playbooks. They are so great at capturing that like truly overpowered monstrousness that a lot of other games find some way to curtail or bring in. It makes you feel so insanely powerful, and I really love that. But on the flip side, you have all that power and you're still at the mercy of your messy emotions. So the game is also really built on making sure that your monsters are tied deeply in with each other and they have all of these messy interpersonal relationships, and the very like mechanics and the way that they work push and pull you in different directions so that you have to grapple with those feelings or ignore those feelings or do something and act on those feelings, and oftentimes to disastrous effect in the most delicious way possible. It's a really amazing game in that regard. The other thing that I think is really awesome about Apocalypse Keys is that it really has this like globe-trotting breadth of locations and cultures. So the entire premise is that you are monsters who are out to stop the apocalypse, And the apocalypse can happen pretty much anywhere on this earth or even beyond. In the sessions that we played, I was able to explore locations that I have never seen games set in and interact with mythological creatures and folklore that I had never been exposed to before. And so I think that the fundamental setup for Apocalypse Keys, once people really start writing and creating mysteries for it, is going to be an amazing opportunity to delve into cultures that are not as represented in role-playing games as they could be. So I highly recommend Apocalypse Keys. I think it is, once again, an amazing game. And as I said, it's currently in beta, but it's very playable. I had the opportunity to play it many times, and I love it to bits. You can find it on Jammi's itch account, which is at Sword Queen Games. So definitely check them out. And that's it for me. Bye-bye.
Hey, this is Rich.
And this is Rach.
That's right. It's the Plus One Forward co-host for the Gauntlet Favorite Game of the Year episode. Very excited to be on here with you, Rach.
Oh, so am I.
Tell us what your favorite game is.
So this year, it's been quite a journey for me in terms of changing my expectations for play because of the pandemic and the border being shut down, because part of playing at a lot of conventions meant I was playing at a lot of American conventions, and I can't even go into the States right now. I'm stuck in Canada. We've been exploring a lot of belonging outside belonging games for our summer series, which meant I had to look at these games and go, well, what parts of these games work for me and what don't work for me, which it's a wider step back of what parts of PBTA work for me and what parts aren't necessarily my favorite, and I have to make adjustments to get more enjoyment out of. Which brings me to my game of the year, and I was projecting a little bit on Twitter about, I'm not 100% sure if this is an honest game of the year, but it's my choice, darn it, so I'm going to go with it, and it's Apocalypse World.
What?
I know, don't turn off the podcast. I can explain my reasoning, my rationale, it'll all make sense.
My finger's on the button, but I will give you some time.
My partner Rob and I have been doing a lot of duet games throughout the pandemic, which means we have had a lot of time to talk about what parts of games work for us and what parts are less fun. With Apocalypse World in particular, I love Apocalypse World. I love the idea of the communities and the people that it invokes in me, because obviously I'm going to look at a game and see these are the parts that resonate with me. These are the parts that would bring me joy. These are the type of characters I want to play. But with post-apocalyptic games in particular, Rach's slightly quirky worldviews don't always mesh with what people think of in terms of post-apocalyptic fiction. Usually I have to compromise. Usually I end up with a lot of people who show up going, I want to play a character with all the guns. I want to play a character who is going to be combat heavy, and this is how combat is going to roll because this is the power fantasy I want to inhabit. And that's fine. I can work with that. But what if there was a game where you didn't have to compromise like that? What if you took a game and leaned in hard into the vision that specifically you and your MC have for that game and what types of stories that you're going to play? And that's how this duet Apocalypse World game came to be.
Nice.
Rob and I looked at it and went, all right, if you want to take this game and make it completely self-indulgent, what do you want to do? One of the places this grabbed me the most was exploring the combat mechanics of Apocalypse World. Now, Rich, you've played games with me, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know I'm kind of an oddball with combat. I'll joke on the podcast, like, people play combat characters. What kind of loser plays a combat character? This is the first time with Apocalypse World I've really sat down and looked at the battle moves and looked at large-scale combat and what it could look like, because my MC and I have a pretty shared vision of how over-the-top and ridiculous and badass this combat can be, even though it might not be the basic expectation of what post-apocalyptic fights should be. Like, it's not like I'm going to show up with the giant sniper rifle and blow people away. It's, what if this is a super messy hand-to-hand combat where we're exchanging barbs back and forth, verbally, I mean, and also physically in some cases. So it's been so much fun.
Thank you so much, Rach, for coming on and talking about your favorite game of the year.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jesse, and I've been playing games in the Gauntlet for about 3 years almost now. Two favorite games of this year, my favorite game to run and my favorite game to play. My favorite game I ran this past year was Under Hollow Hills by Vincent and Meg Baker. It is a game about a fairy circus that travels around, and the lives of the performers as they travel around fairy putting on their show. The game pushes interpersonal and emotional play in fantastic ways. I love all of the moves, basic and playbook in this game. It's all about asking questions and pushing the players to interact with each other in really, really interesting and fun ways. The favorite game that I played this past year is The Bat Hack by Rich Rogers. Rich has heard me sing its praises a million times now, but it's so much fun. Rich had a fundamental insight into the way that stories are generated from sports in the same way that they're generated from OSR games, right? That stuff happens, and then afterwards you tell the story about it. And he came up with a way to make a baseball story game out of the Black Hack, an emergent story that just comes out of the dice rolling and the events happening, and you look back and you're like, wow, something happened there. And when you couple the baseball play element with the small town minor league element, you get just a really, really, really good time that like captures the heart of what I think is interesting and exciting and fun about baseball in an RPG. And yeah, I can't wait to see it take its next steps. Thanks a lot, everybody. Have a great new year.
Hey everyone, Jim Crocker of Jim Likes Games and the Just Played podcast here. Looking back at my calendar, it was a light year in 2020, which I guess isn't surprising when you consider it was, in fact, 2020. I facilitated 64 sessions, give or take, and played in roughly the same number of games here on the Gauntlet. In the spirit of calling out the work of other people, I'm going to pick a game I played as my game of the year as opposed to anything I ran. So first, let me state categorically that as bad as the world was, my games on the Gauntlet were top-notch this year, and they really helped keep me going through these last difficult 10 months. So consider my decision as borderline arbitrary, because I played in a double handful of other games that were just as good in their own different ways that I would love to mention, but we're supposed to keep this reasonably short. So after all that, I feel like the world needs to know more about Heart, the City Beneath. I played in a 3-game series organized by Kieran Gillen that he called Breakers. Get it? Heart Breakers. And when I say that series was totally bananas, I mean that in the best possible way. Heart is by the same team that developed Spire. That's Grant Howitt and Christopher Taylor. And it is this overstuffed, weird fantasy dungeon crawl that actually manages to deliver on the promise of the host of weird pulp games that are all the rage right now. I got to play in this series with 2 of my favorite people on the Gauntlet, while Kieran confronted us with fire zombies, moon cultists, and a bloated vampire so gorged it had gotten stuck in a tunnel. It was gonzo and delightful and unexpectedly touching in all the best and most spontaneous ways. And in the end, it actually turned out to be about the vital importance of cheese to the underground economy. And I played a carousing gnoll harlot named Hagfangs, and it was pretty much perfect. Happy New Year, everyone.
And so we're almost done with this episode. I do want to take a chance for each of us to maybe say something important about their thoughts, maybe even kind of a giving me life for the year. Just a brief thing. I want to say that the Gauntlet community, all the people who've played and done things this year, where they've come in and they've been supportive of other players, they've helped onboard new people, they've created new community things like our Gauntlet Gameway program and celebrating Rich's work on Star Wars Saturdays. That's all been great. People have been very generous with their time and their energy, and have been good to one another, have answered tensions by helping people out throughout this year, and the community has been really dynamite. So I just wanted to say that. Jammi, any 2020 words, thoughts, giving me life, things you want to say?
Yeah, I mean, I've loved TTRPGs for a long time, and I think what I really love about gaming in this hobby, like being able to connect to people and play with other people, I really feel like TTRPGs have saved my life in so many ways. And in 2020, wow, did we need saving? Did we need help? And I really did enjoy, like Sherri brought it up, the idea of the cozy game. So did Rach. Like, I really appreciated how a lot of games have shifted towards that cozy space, that welcoming space, like that respite. I also appreciate a lot of the games that helped achieve catharsis, right? Like playing to lose or playing really big moments. And I really feel like TTRPGs are just such a beautiful, creative, wonderful space to really like work through things creatively in a healthy way, in ways that you don't realize. But it's still really ultimately just a good time, a fun time with people. And I'm especially appreciative of everyone in the Gauntlet. We've really been there for each other. I know 2021 may not be an easy year just yet, but I know it'll be easier because of the Gauntlet and because of games. So I'm super happy about that.
Awesome. Rich, what about you? What do you want to
It's
say?
almost over. The 2020 is almost over, friends.
Almost.
It has been, from a personal thing of everyone becomes the introvert that I am, and that's been interesting. One of the things I found fascinating is that before last year, when I had a couple of physical groups, I had been gaming just online, almost all with the Gauntlet for a few years. And this year gave me an opportunity to really appreciate all of the things that this community has brought to life, as I had a couple of groups that some of them had never played online, some of them just dabbled a little bit, and we have our stuff squared away. You know, like, hey, here's the Gauntlet Play Aids folder. Do I just go in? Yes, just go and take and find a character keeper. Here's some Lines and Veil stuff. Like, here's how we do safety tools, and just helping to normalize that across different groups. Chatting with Paul Beakley of Indie Game Reading Club about his move online, and breaking down some character keepers with him, and then seeing some of the ones that he just did one for Sagas of the Icelanders himself from the ground up, and it was just tight. Like, man, the point he's like, I need to get a different font for this, and like, oh, these color schemes. It's just like, oh, this is so cool. Look at what you're doing, Paul. I have really enjoyed that in about 2020. Yes, the situation that got us here is sucky, but it has enriched my experience to be able to share it with other folks, to share what it is that is great about gaming on the Gauntlet, and being able to play with lots of new Gauntlet folks, as well as our numbers have grown a bit, or at least it feels like it to me, and how we've opened it up with the Gameway programs, and how the Slack now is for, if you game with us, you can get in, and that's totally cool, with a lot of those things that you have done, Lowell, to make this a more open and embracing community. All of the focus that, Jammi, you brought to itch games and this belonging outside belonging thing that you taught me about. It's been great seeing the Gauntlet, in my opinion, really grow and spread out its wings over the year.
Sherri, what do you want to say?
I think one of the things is I came into this year in the middle of a huge project at work, and I was so up in that for a part of the year that when that finally finished and I came out of it and I was playing and I was like free to have all of that space, I realized just how joyous and wondrous the Gauntlet is, that there's all of these opportunities out here. And the Slack was full of people who were just as excited as I was about games that, of course, I can't be in all the games, but I at least got to enjoy them vicariously. And it was just this last half of the year, even though it should have been the worst because it was 2020 and it was the worst, my gaming has been like the most amazing feast. The people have been wonderful. I've been ready to play different ways, see things differently in how I can approach things, because there's so much energy and there's so many people modeling so many awesome ways to go about things. It's been fabulous. So please come and join us, because you will not be disappointed.
Yeah, it's so much fun.
Listeners, that is our show for 2020. Thank you for listening. This is a production of The Gauntlet. You can find out more about that at gauntlet-rpg.com. If you want to check out about our podcast network, about our forums, about our blog, about our calendar, you can find all of that information there. Please go and check that out. We have, coming up in February, our next community online open event. You should check out about that. We've got lots of things. Of course, as I mentioned, we have podcasts, and it's always great for you to rate, review. Those things really help us out. You can contact us at Gauntlet RPG on Twitter if you want to reach out and message us. Jammi, thank you for coming and talking with us about all these things.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Rich, thank you for talking with us again, and thank you for the amazing edits.
Thank you.
All the amazing work. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's a blessing to be part of this podcasting network.
And Sherri, thank you for being willing to come on and take the last place. I made you sit there the whole time until the very end.
No, and everyone was saying such brilliant things. It was making me scared. So.
And listeners, that is our show. Be well.
Hi listeners, Jason from Gauntlet Publishing here. I want to tell you about a couple of new things we have for you this month. The first is Nephews in Peril, a major expansion for Brindlewood Bay, the game of cozy murder mysteries and supernatural horror. Nephews in Peril is a collection of 6 new mysteries for the game, each by a different fabulous author, and some revised rules and gameplay advice. It can be found in the $6 plus Gauntlet Patreon feed until October 15th, and then Drive-Thru RPG after that. The next thing I want to tell you about is Codex Home, the first issue in Volume 5 of the magazine. Codex Home features new material for Trophy Gold and Brindlewood Bay, plus the all-new game Back Again from the Broken Land, which is about fantasy heroes recounting stories as they return home from a calamitous war against a Dark Lord, all while evading the remnants of that Dark Lord's army. It's a fantastic Powered by the Apocalypse game, and we're delighted to share it with you later in October. Remember, your contributions to the Gauntlet Patreon help support everything we do in the community, including this very podcast. As always, thanks so much for your support.